Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this presentation on advocacy in occupational therapy from the North Carolina Occupational Therapy Association. To start off, we've got the definition of advocacy from the 4th edition of the Occupational Therapy Practice Framework Domain and Process. Advocacy is defined as efforts directed toward promoting occupational justice and empowering clients to seek and obtain resources to support health, well-being, and occupational participation. And here we're taking a look at advocacy in the occupational therapy process. So, similar to other intervention methods, when you're evaluating whether or not to use advocacy in the OT process, you're going to identify barriers to occupational engagement at the person, group, and population levels. As an intervention, advocacy can be the efforts taken by the practitioner on behalf of a client, or it can be self-advocacy, which are efforts taken by a client with the support of the practitioner. And when we're looking at outcomes from using advocacy, we want to see increased occupational engagement, and this will most likely be achieved by policy changes, increased access to resources as a result of these policy changes, appropriate accommodations for individuals, groups, or populations, program implementation, and so on and so forth. There are 3 different levels of advocacy that we will be talking about in this video, and the first is daily practice level advocacy. Daily practice level advocacy is when practitioners put their occupational therapy knowledge to use on a daily basis in the settings which they practice. Occupational therapy practitioners are generally pretty good at daily practice level advocacy, sometimes without even realizing it. By becoming more aware of this level of advocacy and when you're performing it, you're setting the stage and building the skills necessary to engage in advocacy that starts to feel a little bit scarier. One of the best ways to be an advocate at the daily practice level is to be a good OT. When we do our jobs well, we're demonstrating our skill set, our education, and proving to others why our profession should be taken seriously and protected. To go along with this, some other examples of daily practice level advocacy include providing evidence-based interventions, communicating your client's needs to the interprofessional team that you practice with, and explaining what occupational therapy is and how it can aid and benefit clients in achieving their goals. Next, we have professional level advocacy. At this level of advocacy, practitioners identify circumstances in which they're able to use their occupational therapy lens to tackle needs that are not being met in their practice setting or outside of their organizations. And professional level advocacy connects daily practice with systems level advocacy. At this level of advocacy, OT practitioners are ensuring that clients have access to services, that best practice is being promoted within a setting, and that services are being used appropriately. This is where you're really starting to build onto the advocacy skills that you've been developing in daily practice level at a slightly larger level and setting up OT to be recognized at the systems level. Some examples of professional level advocacy include referring a client for occupational therapy services, establishing a journal club to promote best practice, or writing appeals to insurance using objective data. And lastly, we have systems level advocacy. Systems level advocacy is kind of intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. This level of advocacy takes place where policy is brought up, discussed, and passed. And that could be at the local, state, or federal level, and can also occur within hospital systems or school systems. As occupational therapy practitioners, we've got to remember that we are the experts on occupational therapy. It's unlikely that elected officials have the same understanding of occupational therapy that we do. So we've got to make sure that we are educating them. Aside from that, it's important to respond to proposed legislature or policy through public comments or personal communications with policymakers to explain and defend our position on these policies that may impact our profession and practice. Some examples of systems level advocacy include joining NCOTA here in North Carolina, AOTA at the national level, and or COTAD, the Coalition of Occupational Therapy Advocates for Diversity. You can also write to the members of North Carolina General Assembly, provide public comment on proposed policy changes, as I mentioned, and also meet with legislatures to discuss the importance of occupational therapy and how they can support us as a profession. Unfortunately, there are some challenges facing systems level advocacy for occupational therapy. In a review of literature, there were gaps in peer-reviewed studies addressing systems level occupational therapy advocacy. When systems level advocacy was mentioned in literature, it was primarily in the context of a call to action. Greater involvement in systems level advocacy is encouraged in these contexts, but there's little to no peer-reviewed literature about how it is done and how effective it is. And we need more of this so that others can use it in the future to be successful advocates at the systems level. In addition to these gaps in literature, there are also misunderstandings of advocacy and occupational therapy. Advocacy, while it does have its ties to politics, is not inherently political. By engaging in advocacy, you're promoting the profession of occupational therapy and taking steps to ensure that policy is enacted which will protect your career. And sadly, you probably know from your interactions with family members and friends that not many people outside of the profession know what occupational therapy is or what we do. As a profession that's been around for over a century, we need to continue striving towards an identity that is known and easily understood. Imagine a world where we don't have to do elevator speeches because everybody knows what OT is. Here are some more examples of how you can be a systems level advocate. You can establish a relationship with your elected officials by writing to them, sending them an email, or calling them on the phone. When you communicate with your elected officials, you can highlight the need for new policy and play a role in formulating those policies, and you can also do this within your workplace as well. You can review legislation and policies and provide your input on them. And you can also maintain your membership in your state association, NCOTA, or AOTA. And lastly, you contribute to political action committees because these are sources of funding for elected officials which support occupational therapy at the systems level. And maintaining membership in your state association and AOTA is important because these organizations employ individuals who solely focus on policy and laws and make sure that we have the information we need to stay informed about what is going on that might affect our profession. AOTA has a great resource in the Legislative Action Center. This is the homepage of AOTA's Legislative Action Center. This site provides you with templates for emails and letters. You can sign up for email alerts. You can search for legislature, which will impact occupational therapy, and you can also find your elected officials. You're able to edit the information in the templates to personalize the text within the form, so you're able to add your own personal touch to the communications that you're sending. This is definitely a great resource to stay up to date on policy that is impacting occupational therapy, and get your feet wet in communicating with elected officials. Thank you so much for watching this video on advocacy and occupational therapy from the North Carolina Occupational Therapy Association. If you are interested in NCOTA and our advocacy efforts, you can learn more by visiting our website at ncota.org, and you can reach out to our Legal and Political Affairs Committee at ncotaadvocacy@gmail.com. Thank you.